Sometimes when you look back, you find certain oddities within different programs, how they recruit, the type of players they land, the success rate among them. And with USC and former five-star receivers, it really is oil and water. I mean, they have had virtually no success when they land a five-star receiver. And I'm not just talking about a five-star receiver, whatever. A lot of these guys were like top 3 overall players. I mean, USC landed 3 of the top 10 receivers in recruiting history. They all busted out. Let's go back and look at every top 5-star receiver USC has landed, their careers in college, their careers in the NFL. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another recruiting throwback video, and we start with a complete bust. Patrick Turner, the number 2 overall player in the nation. This is the second highest rated receiver in recruiting history. From Tennessee, he commits to USC. There you can see his 4 years, a full 4 years at USC. It just didn't work out for him. He couldn't get anything going. He did have a decent senior season, which enabled him to be drafted in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. He had 10 touchdowns and 700 yards. Overall, he was pretty much a complete flop, finishing with just 1,700 yards at USC in 4 seasons. He did end up getting drafted, or was that by the Miami Dolphins? I guess he got drafted by the Miami Dolphins late in the 3rd round and then played with the Jets for 3 years. He finished his NFL career with 10 catches, 122 yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. This is the number 2 overall receiver in recruiting history that finishes his NFL career with 1 touchdown. It hurts my heart. It hurts. I can't express it enough. Let's move on to another extremely highly regarded prospect. This is the number 4 ranked receiver in recruiting history. It is Whitney Lewis, who was the number 2 overall player in his class. From the state of California, he commits to USC. And at USC, it's a very sad story for him. Appears in just 8 games as a freshman. 3 catches for 27 yards. Also had 3 carries, 3 rushes for 11 yards. And he ended up transferring to Northern Iowa, where he had 26 catches for 218 yards and 1 touchdown. What a complete bust. It says here, Lewis was shifted between receiver, tailback, and fullback. So according to this article or this story, the number 4 ranked receiver in recruiting history played some time at fullback. How does that happen? As a true freshman in 2003 and gained 38 total yards. He was redshirted in 2004 after being ruled academically ineligible. Those Pete Carroll USC teams, it was crazy. It was crazy what they were doing. The 6'1", 225-pound Lewis was moved back to receiver as a sophomore and didn't catch a pass in 9 games, and he ended up transferring to Northern Iowa, 200 yards. He went undrafted. That's another complete bust. Moving on to the number 3 receiver, in USC history. This is the number 3 player in the nation. It's Vidal Hazelton. That's a great name for a receiver. This is another top 10 receiver in history. USC was really landing him from a military academy in Virginia. So this kid comes with some work ethic. I like it. Reading up on him, you can see 3 years at USC. He unfortunately was injured for many of them. He had just 1 catch. His true freshman season, he did appear in 11 games. His sophomore season, he found his footing a little bit, had over 500 receiving yards. His junior season, 6 catches, and then he decided to transfer to Cincinnati. Good for him. And he appeared in 1 game and had 6 catches, so he had a nice game. 1 game, 6 catches for 63 yards. It's not bad. Let's be honest. Let's give him some credit. It's not bad. And you can see he was undrafted in 2011, played with the Chargers practice squad, the Bengals, the Titans, the Jets, and then also played with the Boston Brawlers, and then went on to the Canadian leagues. He did not play a single snap in the NFL, but just reading up on him, Seems like a pretty high character kid. This is a little bit on why he transferred. It says further contemplating matters. Hazelton's grandfather was unfortunately diagnosed with cancer, and he desired to be geographically closer to him. On December 2nd, he asked and was granted permission to transfer to another school. After leaving, he said, USC is a great place. It's filled up with athletes. If someone's not 100%, they've got to pass them up. I would have done the same if I was the coaches at USC. So he's referring to his previous injuries and getting passed up on the depth chart. I mean, this is one of the highest ranked receivers ever saying that, so you got to give this kid credit for being honest about the situation. You get injured, it's a tough thing, but he was a complete bust. Moving on to the number 4 5-star receiver, another top 10 overall player in the nation. This is George Farmer from California, the number 8 overall player, the number 1 receiver in his class. You can take a look there. He played 3 seasons at USC, dealt with some crazy injuries. His true freshman season, not much going on there, just 42 yards. Sophomore season, this was the kid that was bit by a brown recluse spider, if I remember correctly, and his junior season, and he just said, screw it, I'm done, I'm going to the NFL. I don't care that I only have I don't care that I only have 300 total receiving yards. I'm going off to the NFL, where he was subsequently picked up by the Dallas Cowboys as an undrafted free agent, ended up going to the Seahawks, and did not record a single catch in the NFL. And this is what I was referring to. Farmer tore his ACL and MCL in preseason practice, causing him to miss the entire season despite only grabbing 30 catches for 363 yards with 4 touchdowns. An injury-plagued USC Trojan career. He decided to enter the draft after his junior season. He's just like, I'm done with it, whatever. I know I'm going undrafted. I'm sick of it. You got to respect that type. You got to respect that line of thinking, honestly. But he was a complete bust. They're getting no production out of these. The best so far, the best we've gotten is like a 3rd-round pick. These are the top receivers in history. Some of these guys. 3rd-round pick is the best we've gotten. The next guy, it's going to be Kyle Prater, who once again was the number 1 overall receiver in his class, the number 11 overall player from Hillside, Illinois. He ends up committing. That's a great recruiting job by USC to get a kid committed from Illinois. This is another situation. They barely even get a catch out of him. I mean, he literally had 1 catch for 6 yards and then transferred. And then he transferred to Northwestern. He got immediate eligibility. Wow. That had to have been one of the first kids to get immediate eligibility. 2011, he's at USC. 2012, he's at Northwestern. And he played 3 seasons at Northwestern. His senior season, you know what? He had over 500 yards, 2 touchdowns. In his college career, he only had 2 touchdowns. And he did go undrafted in 2015. He did sign on to play with the New Orleans Saints practice squad. Maybe he got a few practice squad checks, we hope. Maybe he invested those into some Bitcoin or something. That would be unbelievable for him. But you can take a look at the story with him. He committed to USC. He graduated early from high school and intended to be an early enrollee at USC, but decided to wait on enrolling after he found out that Pete Carroll was going to the Seattle Seahawks. He ended up deciding to go through with his plans to enroll early at USC when Lane Kiffin was named the new coach. He redshirted his freshman season due to injury. On January 9, 2012, he announced that he planned to transfer from USC to an undetermined school. He stated that he wanted to be closer to home, and his release specified that he could not transfer to any other Pac-12 schools or Notre Dame. that unfortunately, those were the type of rules. It's amazing how kids have to be... Dudes that are like 35 years old, like a dude like this who was a top recruit, have to be looking at these kids and just thinking, how spoiled are these kids? I mean, I'm sure he loves that the kids have the freedom they have, but this dude literally was transferring. This is a former 5-star receiver transferring after your freshman season and them telling you, you're not allowed to go to a Pac-12 school, you're not allowed to go to Notre Dame either because they're our rival. We're going to block you. Oh, dude, that is crazy. That would never happen now. He ended up going to Northwestern of all places. He got a good degree. He got nice. Maybe he got a job as a doctor or something. We don't know. But he was a major bust in terms of his football career. This one really is sad. The next guy we're looking at, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's another 5-star, the number 11 overall player. I'm sure many people know this guy, number 2 overall receiver in his class. If Amon-Ra St. Brown went to Ohio State or Alabama, he would have been a first-round pick. Guaranteed. No doubt in my mind. No doubt. But he went to USC. He was a 3-and-done at USC. I also think what screwed him was the pandemic year being his last year before he went to the draft. Teams didn't get as good of a look on him. That's why he was a 4th-round pick. Because this dude had a really good sophomore season with over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. And then his junior season in just 6 games, because the Pac-12 was playing that really short schedule, he had 7 touchdowns in 6 games. Very respectable numbers, but he was drafted in the 4th round with the 112th overall pick. If you're the number 11 overall recruit and you get drafted in the 4th round, that's a little rough. He had a really good rookie year with the Detroit Lions. A lot of people know who he is. He's a great young slot receiver. He's going to be really good paired with Jameson Williams coming up this year. Big things expected for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love Amon-Ra. I was high on him. He was one of my fantasy sleepers. He turned out right. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, but when it comes to being, you're a 4th-round pick, it's unfortunate. He would have got drafted enough higher. He would have been drafted higher on another team. The next guy is Fred Davis. Yes, it's that Fred Davis. He was a receiver. Now, he transitioned to being a tight end in college. But as a recruit, he was a receiver from Toledo, Ohio. They pull him from Buckeye country, the number 14 overall player in his class, the number 2 receiver. Had a really productive career at USC. You can see as a true freshman, he was a receiver before making the switch as a big-bodied guy. He put on more muscle. He transitions into being a tight end, and he had a really good senior season with almost 900 yards and 8 touchdowns. That is elite production for a tight end in college. Don't get it twisted, especially in 2007. That is elite production, and he ended up a 2nd-round pick, the 48th overall pick with the Redskins. He played 5 years with Washington, got a nice rookie deal, and then played for the Patriots practice squad. Taking a look at his NFL career stats, 2,000 yards and 13 receiving touchdowns. So, you know what? This is the biggest success story when it comes to 5-star USC receivers. Good for him. He played a little bit. He was a consensus first-team All-Pac-10 in 2007 and the John Mackey Award winner in 2007 as well. Moving on to the next 5-star receiver, it is Joseph Lewis. This is a recent one. The number 31 overall player, the number 4 receiver in his class, Joseph Lewis, has had some legal issues. Let's just say that. His one season at USC, he appeared in 4 games. He had 4 catches for a total of 39 yards with 0 touchdowns. He recently, it looks like, got out of prison after a domestic violence charge. So it looks like he got out of prison. Congratulations to him. And hopefully, he's able to turn it around. But just a sad story. You go from a 5-star recruit to catching 4 passes in your entire college career due to off-the-field issues. It's unfortunate. This is the final USC 5-star. It's Dwayne Jarrett. And yes, the number 39 overall player was somehow a 5-star in this class. The number 7 overall receiver, this dude, quite simply, was Megatron at USC. As a freshman, almost 900 yards, 13 receiving touchdowns. As a sophomore, 1,200 yards, 16 touchdowns. Junior, 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, 41 receiving touchdowns in 3 seasons. You think to yourself, finally, we got a USC 5-star receiver turned into a first-round pick. But no! With all those stats, he was drafted in the 2nd round. Oh. 2nd round, pick 45, the Carolina Panthers, and then he went on to play with some sort of Canadian football team. In his career, he had 35 career receptions in the NFL for 428 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. Those numbers are ultra elite. He's a 6'4" receiver. I am shocked. Back in that day and age, 2007 draft, he was not drafted with, a first-round pick. I mean, it's crazy. And he was a consensus All-American for 2 straight seasons, consensus first-team All-Pac-10 for 2 straight seasons. He was a beast. But when you get down to it, the final numbers, we had 9 total 5-stars receivers in USC history, 0 first-round picks, 0 Pro Bowls. produced by any of them. And a lot of those kids went undrafted or they caught like one pass. I mean, you're talking about 3 or 4 guys that caught like one pass and then transferred, or they had off the field issues. This is historically bad. And they do have a kid committed currently, Zach Branch, who's a beast receiver. This kid would have went to Ohio State if Lincoln Riley didn't go to USC. He was coming to Ohio State, but Lincoln Riley goes to USC. This kid's in the 2023 class. He's the number 14 overall player, the number 2 overall receiver. And no, I'm not saying he's going to be a bust with Lincoln Riley there. It's going to be great. They're going to have a really good offense, but he's going to have to buck the trend and become... Could he be the first round, pick that was a former 5-star for USC? They've had a rough history when it comes to 5-star receivers. But guys, that's going to do it for this edition of Recruiting Throwback. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.